So I want you to imagine walking through this incredibly humid, muddy rice paddy, let's say somewhere in South Asia, right?
Right.
And it's just a few days after this massive rainstorm. You are miles away from any major lake, any river. But then you look down at the wet, sticky dirt near your boots, and suddenly you realize you are definitely not alone out there.
You see someone moving in the mud.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
There is this 2-foot-long, incredibly muscular fish, literally crawling across the mud right in front of you.
It sounds like a scene out of some low-budget science fiction movie.
Totally.
But for anyone living in regions like India or across South Asia, it is a very real, very startling ecological reality. You're looking at the shoalfish, or, as it's really widely known, the snakehead murrel.
The snakehead murrel.
Right. Scientifically, it's called Channa striata. And it's an animal that completely shatters our fundamental understanding of what a fish is even supposed to be.
And that is exactly why we are doing this deep dive today. Welcome in, everyone. We are unpacking a whole stack of research and field guides dedicated entirely to this one, frankly, bizarre creature.
It's a fascinating one.
It really is.
Yeah.
So our mission for this deep dive is twofold. First, we're going to explore the absolute boundary-breaking biology that allows this animal to survive, well, outside the water.
Which is crazy to even say.
Right. And second, we're going to take all of that hard science and translate it into a practical, tactical playbook for how you can actually catch one. Because as it turns out, understanding that weird biology is really the only way you're going to get one of these things on the end of a fishing line.
Yeah, and that's the core philosophy of truly elite angling, right? Like, you can't just buy expensive gear and hope for the best.
We know you definitely can't.
You have to understand the organism. And with the snakehead murrel, standard aquatic logic simply does not apply. I mean, if you treat it like a normal fish, you're going to go home empty-handed every single time.
Okay, let's unpack this biology first, because the environments this fish calls home, they sound absolutely miserable.
Oh, they are.
I mean, we're talking about stagnant ponds, really dense, overgrown swamps, choked out canals, and like we mentioned, those flooded, muddy paddy fields.
Yeah, definitely not your standard fishing spot.
Right. These are not the pristine, babbling brooks or crystal clear lakes you see in, fly fishing magazines.
Far from it. And if we connect this to the bigger picture of aquatic chemistry, those environments are brutal for a very specific reason, which is dissolved oxygen.
Okay, dissolved oxygen.
Yeah, because in a stagnant swamp or a really shallow, muddy paddy, you have a massive amount of decaying plant matter, just rotting vegetation everywhere.
Sounds lovely.
Right. And the bacteria breaking down that vegetation, they consume almost all the available oxygen in the water. So if you dropped a standard, highly active fish...
Like a rainbow trout or something.
Exactly, like a trout. If you dropped a trout into that swamp, it would literally suffocate in a matter of minutes. Yeah, its gills they wouldn't be able to extract enough oxygen to keep its organs functioning. It's an anoxic environment.
So how does the snakehead even survive that? Does it just have, hyper-efficient gills or something?
Well, no, it essentially bypassed the limitations of gills altogether. It evolved a localized solution to a very localized problem. So the snakehead possesses what biologists call suprabranchial organs.
Suprabranchial organs.
Right. And these are specialized, highly vascularized chambers located just above their gills. So when the oxygen in the water drops to lethal levels, the fish just swims to the surface, rolls slightly, and gulps atmospheric air.
Wait, it just breathes the air directly?
Yeah. It traps a bubble of air inside these suprabranchial chambers, and the oxygen diffuses directly into its bloodstream. It operates very much like a primitive lung.
That is wild. Wait, so it's essentially functioning like a scuba diver in reverse.
A scuba diver in reverse. I like that.
Yeah, like it's taking a tank of air from the surface down into the water with it.
That is a remarkably accurate way to visualize it. And the crazy thing is, this isn't just some backup system for emergencies. In deeply stagnant water, they are entirely dependent on this mechanism.
Really?
Yeah, they must surface to breathe or they will drown.
A fish that can drown.
I know, it sounds like an oxymoron. But yes, a fish that can literally drown in water.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting to me. Because having a primitive lung is one thing, right?
Right.
But actually hauling yourself out of the water and moving across dry land is another thing entirely.
Oh, absolutely.
How does a fish physically drag its own body weight across a mudflat? I mean, it doesn't have legs.
No legs, right. It relies on a combination of just raw muscular power and some very creative anatomical repurposing.
Anatomical repurposing.
Yeah, so they use their pectoral fins, those are the fins on their sides, and they use them almost like a pair of rudimentary crutches.
Oh, wow. So they sort of plant them down.
Exactly. They plant those fins into the mud, and then they use these violent, undulating thrusts of their highly muscular bodies to propel themselves forward.
It sounds exhausting.
It is. It's not a casual stroll by any means. It is an exhausting, desperate crawl. And it's usually triggered when their current puddle completely dries up or, the food supply runs out.
It's just such an incredible evolutionary gamble.
Yeah.
You leave the safety of your muddy puddle, you expose yourself to birds and snakes and land predators, all in the hope of finding a slightly deeper, slightly wetter puddle nearby.
It is a huge risk, but think about the payoff, right?
The payoff.
Yeah. By mastering the ability to breathe air and cross wetland, they've completely unlocked access to these fragmented, chaotic habitats where competition from other large predatory fish is practically zero.
Oh, I see. Because nothing else can live there.
Exactly. They own the swamp because nothing else big enough to challenge them can even survive the swamp.
That makes so much sense. Which I guess brings us to its temperament, because surviving in a brutal, low-oxygen swamp requires a pretty rugged disposition.
Definitely.
And based on the research we went through for this deep dive, the snakehead is definitely not a gentle grazer just, nibbling on algae.
No, absolutely not. It is a strict, highly territorial carnivore.
Right.
Its diet consists of small fish, frogs, insects, crustaceans, basically anything smaller than it that shares the water is on the menu. But it's the way it hunts that really defines it. It is an ambush predator.
So it isn't cruising around the pond chasing things down like a shark. It's hiding.
Hiding and conserving energy, which makes sense, right? In a low-oxygen environment, you really don't want to burn calories in a prolonged chase.
Oh, true. You'd run out of breath, literally.
Exactly. So the snakehead uses the murky water and the dense vegetation to its advantage. It just sits perfectly still in the weeds. And it relies really heavily on its lateral line.
The sensory organ, right.
Yeah, that sensory organ running down the side of its body that detects tiny vibrations and pressure changes in the water.
Okay, so it feels the water moving.
Right. So when a frog kicks its legs nearby, the lateral line picks up that acoustic signature. The snakehead triangulates the prey and then just releases all of its pent-up energy in one explosive, violent strike.
I picture it almost like a coiled spring. Just pure, stored kinetic energy waiting for a trigger.
That's exactly what it is.
But there's a massive behavioral contradiction here that I really want to dig into. Because most of the time, this fish is a solitary, ruthless killer.
Very true.
But when the monsoon hits, which is usually between, June and September?
The heavy rainy season.
Right. So heavy rains flood the plains, the snakehead enters its breeding season, and suddenly it starts building nests.
Yes, and this is highly, highly unusual for a fish.
I mean, I don't usually associate fish with nest building.
Most fish don't. Most fish are what we call broadcast spawners. They just release thousands of eggs and sperm into the open water and immediately abandon them. They leave the survival of the species up to pure statistical chance.
Right, just playing the numbers game.
Exactly. But the snakehead, it actually clears a circular area in the dense, shallow vegetation to lay its eggs.
But wait, building a nest in shallow water seems incredibly risky. Doesn't that expose the eggs and the parents to wading birds or snakes or literally any land predator walking by the edge of the water?
It is a massive vulnerability, which is exactly why their behavior undergoes such a radical shift during this time. Because the nest is exposed, both the male and the female stick around to fiercely guard it.
Both parents.
Both of them. They transition from these stealthy, solitary ambush hunters into just hyper-aggressive biological buzzsaws defending a fixed perimeter.
Biological buzzsaws. I love that.
It's true. They will attack absolutely anything that casts a shadow or causes a vibration near those eggs, or later, the fry.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you, the listener? Hey, because if you are an angler, this behavioral transition is the key to the entire puzzle.
It absolutely is the key.
You have an organism that is naturally designed to strike explosively at moving prey, and during the rainy season, it is literally hardwired to violently attack anything that enters its territory.
Right, and this raises the most important question for anyone actually trying to catch them. How do you use that biology to your advantage?
And the answer there starts with timing and location, doesn't it?
It does. Timing and location are everything.
Right, because you aren't just blindly walking up to a lake and throwing a line in. If we look at the timing first, dawn and dusk are the absolute optimal windows. Why are those specific hours so critical for the snakehead?
It mostly comes down to thermal regulation.
Okay, heat.
Right. In a shallow, muddy environment, like a flooded paddy field, the overall water volume is really low. So when the midday sun hits it, the water temperature spikes incredibly fast.
Oh, and warm water holds less oxygen, right?
Yeah, exactly. Warm water holds even less oxygen than cold water, and the intense heat makes the snakehead really sluggish. So to survive that midday heat, they dig deep into the coolest mud they can find at the very bottom, and they basically shut down their activity.
They just hunker down and wait it out.
Yep. So dawn and dusk are when the temperatures are moderate, the shadows are long, and the fish actually feels comfortable enough to actively hunt.
Okay, so we know when to go. But geographically, we are avoiding open water entirely, right?
Oh, completely. Open water isn't just useless, it actively spooks them.
Really?
Yeah. They feel exposed to avian predators like eagles or herons, and being in open water removes their biological advantage of camouflage.
Which is their whole hunting strategy.
Right. So if you are standing on the bank, you need to target the chaotic, messy margins of the water. You are looking for dense weed beds, submerged bushes, the muddy, undercut banks of slow-moving rivers, and of course, the flooded edges of agricultural fields.
But wait, if they are this hyper-aggressive, especially during the monsoon, and they will attack anything near their nest, shouldn't they be incredibly easy to catch?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Like, why are they considered such a prestigious challenge for anglers if they just bite everything?
Well, that is the ultimate paradox of the snakehead.
Yeah.
Coaxing the strike, that's actually the easy part. The challenge is the extraction.
Getting them out of the water.
Exactly. The second a snakehead realizes it is hooked, its immediate hardwired instinct isn't to swim away into open water.
What does it do?
It dives straight down into the thickest, most tangled root system or weed bed it can find, and it just anchors itself there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you aren't just fighting a muscular fish. You are fighting the fish, plus 50 pounds of wet vegetation and the mud itself.
Which means your standard lightweight trout rod is going to snap into pieces about 2 seconds after the hook sets.
Exactly. If you bring delicate gear into a snakehead environment, you will lose your lure, your line, and possibly the tip of your rod.
You need heavy-duty equipment.
Beefy equipment. You want a medium to large hook, a rod with significant backbone, and a high-pound test braided line.
Braided line specifically.
Yes, because braided line can literally slice through aquatic vegetation when the fish tries to tangle you up in the weeds.
That makes total sense. Okay, so let's talk about what's actually going on the end of that heavy-duty line. If we are reverse engineering the snakehead's natural lifestyle, the bait choice seems pretty straightforward.
It is. Small live fish, frogs, or large earthworms.
Right, because you are mimicking the natural forage of the environment.
Exactly. But, and this is crucial, the critical factor here isn't just what the bait is, it's how the bait behaves.
What do you mean?
Well, if you take a dead frog and just let it sink into the mud, it basically becomes invisible to the snakehead. Remember the lateral line we talked about?
Oh. It hunts by detecting vibration and chaotic movement.
Yes. So if the bait doesn't move, it doesn't exist.
You essentially have to ring the dinner bell.
Precisely. You hook the live bait in a way that allows it to struggle and swim near the surface or right on the edge of the weed bed. That frantic, irregular vibration, the acoustic signature of a panicked frog or an injured fish, that is what triggers the snakehead's ambush instinct.
They just can't resist it.
They literally cannot resist the geometry of a struggling prey item right in their strike zone.
Man, that's fascinating. Now, rod fishing is obviously the most active method, but I found the passive methods we uncovered in the sources really fascinating too, because they rely so heavily on understanding how the fish moves through its environment.
Oh, the traps.
Yes. For instance, the traditional use of bamboo fish traps.
The bamboo trap is just a masterclass in exploiting an animal's behavioral geometry.
How so?
So these traps are intricately woven cylinders, and they have this funnel-shaped entrance that points inward, much like a classic lobster pot.
And you place them in narrow bottlenecks, right? Like where water drains from one paddy field into another.
Yeah, exactly. The trap takes advantage of two very specific biological traits. First, the snakehead is obviously drawn to the scent and the movement of the bait placed inside.
Sure.
Second, because they are so accustomed to violently forcing their way through dense, tangled vegetation in the swamp, they have zero hesitation about pushing their bodies through the tight, flexible bamboo slats of the funnel.
Oh, they just muscle right through
They
it.
just push right in. But once they are inside, those inward-pointing slats prevent them from reversing out.
Hmm.
Their own aggressive forward momentum essentially traps them.
That is brilliant. It literally uses their terrestrial-style crawling strength against them.
It really does.
The other method the sources mentioned is the cast net, which again makes perfect sense during the monsoon season.
Oh, cast nets are incredibly effective.
Right, because if you know a pair of snakeheads is aggressively guarding a fixed shallow nest, a heavy-weighted net thrown over that specific radius is going to be incredibly effective.
It's game over. A cast net flares out like a parachute, and the lead weights on the edges pull it rapidly down to the mud, pinning absolutely everything underneath. It completely neutralizes their ability to dive into the roots and get stuck.
Okay, so we understand the biology. We've got the heavy rod, the braided line, and our live frog. We are standing on the muddy bank of a flooded field at 5:30 in the morning.
The perfect setup.
This is the showdown. What are the absolute pro tips for those final moments before the strike?
Okay, the first rule of the shoreline, and this is non-negotiable, is absolute stealth.
The stealth.
Yes. You have to remember that you are hunting a hunter. The snakehead's sensory organs are finely tuned to detect the footfalls of predators.
Oh, because of the lateral line again?
Exactly. If you are clumping along the muddy bank in heavy boots, snapping twigs, or casting a long, sweeping shadow over the water, you are sending shockwaves directly into their lateral lines.
You essentially have to be a ghost out there. Because if they feel you coming, they will just sink into the mud and wait you out.
They will completely shut down their feeding behavior. So you have to approach the water slowly, stay low, and really minimize any heavy impacts on the ground.
Makes sense. Now, the second pro tip is more visual. And I love this one because it ties everything we've talked about perfectly together.
The bubbles.
Yes. Before you cast, you don't just blindly throw the bait into the water. You watch the surface for tiny clusters of bubbles.
This is, hands down, the ultimate angler's hack. And it is entirely based on the fish's unique respiratory system.
The suprabranchial organs.
Exactly. Because the swamp water is anoxic, lacking oxygen, the snakehead has to surface to breathe. It has no choice.
Right.
And when they gulp air and sink back down, or when they exhale, they release a distinct, tight cluster of bubbles that rises to the surface.
So in a completely still, weed-choked pond, those bubbles aren't just random swamp gas.
Yeah.
They are the exact real-time GPS coordinates of the ambush predator.
They are literally a neon sign. If you see those bubbles, you know precisely where a large snakehead is staged in the weeds. So you cast your bait just past the bubbles, and then you slowly retrieve it directly across that strike zone.
That's so cool. And when the strike actually happens, the final piece of advice from the sources is really just a warning about pure, unadulterated physics.
Yeah.
Hold on tight.
Yes. Do not underestimate their power. You are dealing with an animal that possesses the fast-twitch muscle fibers required to launch its entire body out of the water or to literally drag itself across dry land.
They are pure muscle.
Pure muscle. So the initial strike is so violent that if your grip is loose or if your reel's drag is set too tight, the kinetic energy will literally rip the rod right out of your hands or snap the line instantly.
Wow.
You have to set the hook hard, keep the rod tip high to maintain leverage, and power the fish out of the weeds before it can anchor itself in the mud.
It sounds like an absolute adrenaline rush.
Oh, it's a whole other level of fishing.
And looking at all of this, it's so clear that catching the Snakehead Murrel is so much more than just a recreational hobby. It is quite literally an exercise in applied ecology.
Absolutely.
Every single piece of tactical advice we covered, the heavy gear, the live bait, the dawn timing, the stealth, hunting for the bubbles, it is all just a mirror reflecting the bizarre, incredible biology of this fish.
Yeah, because when you angle for a snakehead, you aren't just interacting with a fish, you are interacting with the mud, the low oxygen water, the monsoon cycles, and millions of years of extreme evolutionary adaptation. The environment shaped the fish, and the fish completely dictates the tactics.
I love that. Which leaves me with one final thought for anyone listening to this deep dive. The next time you are outside and a heavy storm rolls through, turning a nearby field or an empty dirt lot into a muddy, stagnant, flooded mess, don't just walk past and see a puddle.
Take a closer look.
Exactly. Stop for a second. Look closely at the muddy edges. Watch the surface of that shallow water for ripples or for tiny, distinct clusters of bubbles rising from the mud. Because you might not just be looking at a temporary puddle. You might be looking at the hunting ground of a creature that bends the very rules of biology. A fish that doesn't even need to stay in the water to survive.